Alright, all you glorious gamers out there, welcome to the PlayersToo Podcast, the video game podcast for gamers like you, by gamers like you. You can find PlayersToo on all the social media, that's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com, that's PLAYERSTOO.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts, that really helps us out. It does a huge amount for the exposure of the show, and we can't thank you enough if you've already done that for us. It really does only take you 5 seconds, and it really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, and on with the show. My name is Mark Henderson. With me, as always, Mr. Lewis Camley. How's it going, Lewis?
It's going alright, Mark. How you doing?
I am okay. I've had a fairly miserable day at work, so we're going to blow straight past that and talk about video games. Yay!
Yeah, I've had a fairly long, tough week with work as well, so not a ton of time to be playing games. I've been fairly just exhausted every night. I think we've all been there. Something about January blues as well.
Yeah, January blues is a real thing. It's a real thing.
Was it yesterday was Blue Monday, I think, which is like ostensibly the worst day of the year. Basically.
Oh, really?
And it's only just begun.
Good stuff. Stuff.
But yeah, I've been playing basically just more of what I was talking about last week, which is more Outer Wilds and Outer Worlds, which I still have to pause every time I go to say both of those things. I just wanted to pick up briefly on Outer Worlds, which I feel like I'm kind of slogging in at the moment. It's one of your favourite games of last year, right?
Absolutely loved it, yeah.
And I was super excited to get going with it, and it might be that I kind of stepped away from it to play Death Stranding, and I've not admittedly had a lot of time to really sink into it. I feel like it's a game where if I sat for, a 7 or 8 hour stint on a weekend, I would...
Exactly how
I think I would get really much more invested in it, but at the moment it feels so much like I'm getting... the loading takes ages for a start, but I'm getting into it and I'm spending time in the menus, I'm sorting out my inventory, I'm maybe doing my level up of the character, double checking all my quests. I do wish you could put all of your quest icons onto the map at once. It's a little frustrating that I have to keep changing that to see where I'm going.
Yes, that is true.
And so it just...
Your quest should appear on your map.
Yeah.
And also you should be able to scroll around your map faster.
Yeah.
Why is that so slow? It's crazy slow. Yeah. I have no idea why that is.
Particularly when some of the maps are really quite small.
Yes.
Like it should,
yes.
And it just when you've got 5 quests in a small area, just put them all on, because
them on the map.
I'm obviously going to just do a circuit and get them all, so I have to keep going in and changing it, double checking what one's the closest. And
these are completely valid.
Yeah, so okay, well that's good, because now that I'm on Monarch, the game is definitely opening up. There's so much more going on Monarch, and one small section of gaming where I maybe only had 2 hours to sink into it, I spent considerable amount of time in menus, considerable amount of time working out the best route to go, time talking to my companions, which is obviously part of the game. That's fine. At the end of that, I was kind of cut off because other things were going on. I was sort of I just haven't really got anywhere with this yet.
I think you might be spending too much time in your menus, man. Because one of the things that I felt about the Outer Worlds versus Fallout, or the most recent Fallouts, is that when we for a while played Fallout 4, and I felt as if we were just in menus all the time, sorting out inventory all the time, whereas I didn't ever really feel that way in the Outer Worlds, or certainly not as much anyway. I very much felt as though I spent much more time in the dialogue trees talking to people, and you have to be invested in that. There's a lot of that happening in the game. I would say it's equal parts talking to NPCs, figuring out the story, making choices while speaking to people, and 50% the combat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very clearly split that way in my head anyway. And there are vast portions of the game where that is not always equal, where you are speaking a lot to the NPCs and you're actually really not doing very much apart from that.
Yeah.
And you're doing wee piddly missions between NPCs and go and get this off of this guy, and you have to barter with him, and depending on what your skills are kind of dictates how you're able to go about doing the missions and things like that. For me, I was expecting all this, but I know that you were never big into Fallout games and whatever, so this was all
above board for you. You knew it was
completely
coming.
Fine. Was fully expecting it, wanted it, quite frankly. So yeah, but I never really felt as if I was spending a lot of time in the menus. Honestly, I can count on one hand the amount of times that I ate a food item in that game that buffed you or gave you health back, because you get an inordinate amount of what I will call stim packs, but aren't
adrenal.
Yes, the inhaler thing in this. So just forget about them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? See, unless you're
over encumbered,
don't worry about it. I just completely don't worry about it, because I always felt as though, although I was picking up a lot of stuff, that I had a good amount of inventory space. As long as I wasn't being stupid about it, you're basically fine. Yeah, just don't worry about spending a lot of time in your inventory. Just know the mission that you're going to do that mission, then take it from there, do the next one.
See, it's probably more that, because like you say, the the consumables in the inventory are essentially meaningless. The weaponry, I have a bad habit, as you've seen me do with Borderlands when we've been playing that as well, of kind of racking up a whole load of weapons but never changing my loadout until a certain point. I really, really like the story and all the little offshoots of the story. I just did this one side mission with this weird family, and I won't say any more than that, but I just loved that.
Know exactly what
yeah, and it's
about.
like moments like that, and the
very Fallout, that mission.
Exactly, yeah, and the general scope of the world and the problems that exist on all these planets and between all these factions. I'm really into all that, and I love talking to the NPCs. And I guess it's a mixture of the way I play games generally, the way I play games like this in particular, and just the amount of time I can dedicate to it. Where Death Stranding, I certainly felt like I could just jump in, play for a couple of hours, I'd get a couple of deliveries done, and that would be fine. Frustrating in its way as well, but with this, I'm kind of like progress is inching forward at the moment, and I just, once I've got some time, I'll just like zone through it, I think. But that's kind of where I'm at just now with that, and that's mostly what I've been playing this week. What about yourself?
Fair enough. Well, I've only really been playing a wee bit more of The Last of Us, which again I'm not going to harp on about because everyone is like, oh dude, you really should have played this before now, and I accept that, and I'm going to say that it's really, really good, and everyone's like, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
But it really is. It really, really is.
Yeah, you've been sending me excited, squealing texts.
I'm shocked at how much I like it, to be completely honest with you. Last year, I went to go back and play the first Red Dead before Red Dead 2 came out. And comparing that to a modern open world game, it kind of pales in comparison. I understand why at the time it would have been great and it would have been revolutionary, and why it would have been a lot of people's favourite games ever at that time. And I'm not saying it's a bad game, and in actual fact, the story that it's told in the first Red Dead Redemption is absolutely excellent. So I'm by no means saying that it's a bad game, it just didn't quite hold up to modern standards. The Last of Us does in almost every capacity. I wasn't prepared to like it as much as I did, because things can get overhyped, and I kind of thought, like, yeah, this will be good, I'm sure I'll like it. I'm not sure that I'll like it as much as everyone else, but can I tell you where I am at with it right now? And I'm about halfway through now, I would say. I'm now seriously thinking that I might like it better than Horizon.
Oh wow.
Which is high praise from me.
Yeah, definitely.
But the thing now is, do I like it more than God of War?
Come on.
It's really that good. I am absolutely loving it. See where I stopped last time, which is when I text you, like, oh my God, this game is incredible.
Again, not for the first time either.
Not for the first time either.
Yeah.
I was in shock. Yeah. I was like affected by what
by like a story beat, or by like a
no, a completely story.
Yeah,
it was all cutscene, in fact.
Wow.
It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I fucking love it.
Okay, yeah.
I am actually annoyed that I hadn't played this game before now. I feel like an idiot, even more than I usually do.
Well, you still got to it eventually. You know?
I did, and I'm super glad that I have. And to be honest with you, this is making me super, super excited for the new one. It really, really is. I feel as if a lot of the chat about this year, and particularly the first half of this year, not just because of all the delays, has been around Cyberpunk, has been around Final Fantasy VII, has been around Doom, it's been around the Avengers to a certain extent, was around Watch Dogs as well, and it feels as if nobody's really spoke about The Last of Us 2 for like quite a while now. But man, I am buzzing for it now. Like, I am really, really properly looking forward to it. I'm really excited.
Good stuff.
Anyway, Liz, it's time for the news. Alright, and news item number 1. Ubisoft are restructuring their editorial team to make their games more unique. This comes after Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot said that the games lacked a differentiation factor last October. This was part of the, I can't remember if it was an investors call or whatever, where Ubisoft had announced all the delays to Watch Dogs, to Gods and Monsters and everything else that was coming out at that time, and announced that Ghost Recon Breakpoint and The Division 2 hadn't quite lived up to expectations and whatever. So it was all part of that same thing, and now it seems as if there's real change happening at Ubisoft. Ubisoft told VGC, "We are reinforcing our editorial team to be more agile and better accompany our development teams around the world as they create the best gaming experience for players." Chief Creative Officer Serge Haskell will still lead the editorial team, but underneath him will be 7 vice presidents, all of whom will be given an individual project to work on and more autonomy. Existing Vice President Tommy Francois will continue to work, as I think will a lot of the other Vice Presidents that are already there, but this does mean promotions for the Child of Light Creative Director Patrick Pellord. Pellord is what I'm going for, but he's a very French man, I assume. This also means the return of the Splinter Cell Creative Director Maxime Bellond.
Yeah, who'd only left about a year ago, right? It was like
hadn't left that long ago, went to Epic Games, and is now back because they've offered him a vice president position.
Yeah.
And I mean, fair play.
And potentially a project looking after Splinter Cell, do we think?
Well, I don't know. There's been rumblings about Splinter Cell for a very long time. I cannot believe that there isn't at least a Splinter Cell game out there in concept at Ubisoft.
Yeah.
I simply don't believe that. How far along in development that game is very much up for debate.
Yeah, and what that would be even like. Is that a full title? Is it a mobile game? Is it a VR game?
Do not even listen. Anyway, this is cool. I think that this is an excellent move by Ubisoft.
Yep.
Great move.
Much needed. Ubisoft just have a problem in terms of getting a bit stuck in their strategies, and we've seen now a few times that they are able to pull themselves out of that when it gets bad. I always come back to the fact that I used to love the Assassin's Creed games, loved them, and over time, by the end of the sort of PS3 generation,
felt jaded with it.
I just felt, they had. It was like feature creep was the big issue at that point. They kept bloating these maps that otherwise would have been fun sandboxes to be in, but they just became. It was like a chore list. It was pretty dull, and certainly Assassin's Creed 3 was just a boring game to me. It felt like it focused on its features rather than its story. And
that was the one in the US Civil War,
exactly.
Yeah, when they introduced guns.
Yeah, it just didn't work. And we saw with Assassin's Creed in particular that they were able to take a step back, make some important changes, look at what else was working out there in the kind of wider gaming world, and brought back first Origins, obviously, but more importantly Odyssey, a game that just totally changed what people think of as an Assassin's Creed game at the moment. You know, it's a very typical thing to kind of talk about an Ubisoft game. Feels like maybe they're on the brink of changing that. Obviously, this generation's been all about service games, or largely about service games, and maybe they're kind of looking at what comes next beyond that.
Hopefully they are. I think this might all be a result of the culture at Ubisoft as well. Ubisoft are known to take the best parts of different games, of different development teams, even games that you have never seen. There'll be bits and pieces taken off those games and put into the new Assassin's Creed. Maybe they show up in Rainbow Six Siege, maybe they were in the Division 2, and we just never know the games that they've been pitched from. But the problem with that is that if everyone's taking the good bits off of the same games, then you end up with all the same bits.
Exactly.
So you actually end up with a very flat feeling range. Although I think that's a good idea in general, and like collaboration across teams is a fantastic thing, but you do need that diversity there. And I think that giving these vice presidents the autonomy to be able to go and do their own projects and be creative and make something different and change the perception of what a Ubisoft game is or what it can be, particularly with that Child of Light guy getting a promotion, I think that's great. I mean, Child of Light was like a really short, beautiful indie game, and the guy's now been promoted to one of the vice presidents at one of the biggest publishers in the world. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love to see more of that. You know?
Yeah, and it's just bringing in people with interesting ideas into positions where they can really use them to good effect.
Exactly, when they could execute them. You know? Good move by Ubisoft. I hope they don't get bought by Google.
Yeah, well, we've been talking about this kind of on and off for the last few weeks, right? There was the cancellation of a game that had been in development for 3 years.
This is the first piece of good news from Ubisoft since October.
Yeah, so like I wrote an article for our website at PlayersToo.com, just headlined,
publicly calling me out.
Essentially.
but it's a really good article, yeah. You can find that over at PlayersToo.com.
Definitely, yeah. It's headlined what's going on at Ubisoft, and it was because of everything that we were talking about around that. I became really fascinated by the idea that Ubisoft was in a moment of massive change, whether that was that they were in terminal decline and someone like Google was going to come in, or if they were just going to have to make big changes like this. And we should say, like, this doesn't prevent any of the stuff that you were talking about in terms of buyouts, because if they put a better corporate structure in place where they're more creative and more flexible and that kind of thing, who isn't going to want a piece of that, you know?
Yeah, but it's all to do with share prices at that level, you know what I mean? Yeah. And if this is perceived positively by their shareholders and the price goes up, then maybe they're looking good. But if this is perceived negatively by shareholders, and change often is in any form, share prices continue to go down.
Do you think we'll see any?
I'm not saying that the writing isn't on the wall for
no,
Ubisoft.
not at all.
This is just a bit of wild speculation for me. All I was really saying when we were talking about this is that I wouldn't be hugely surprised if it did happen.
No.
I still think the chances of it happening are a lot less likely than it not to happen.
Yeah.
It was just interesting.
There's definitely a potential there. Do you think we'll see any of the impact of these changes on that slate of games that got delayed, or are we looking a bit further down the line for this?
I think we're probably looking a bit further down the line for that in reality. I'm not sure about things like Gods and Monsters comes to mind. I don't know how far in development that was. We only ever saw a very, very short trailer of it at E3 last year. So I don't know, maybe something there. However, I think Watch Dogs Legion is well down the line.
Yeah, totally.
And I would imagine the Rainbow Six Quarantine is going to be pretty much sticking to the formula there. For me, it's all about, are they going to generate some new IP?
Yeah.
Because a lot of their IP does feel, once again, stagnant. Alright, news item number 2. It seems Horizon Zero Dawn is coming to PC, Lewis. This news was broke by Jason Schreier over at Kotaku. This is all just rumour at the time being, but if Jason Schreier's broke the news, the chances are it's fairly reliable information. So this would mark the first time a game developed for PlayStation by an SIE studio would be released on another platform. And I know what you're all are thinking. You're like, oh, well, Death Stranding's coming to PC. But that, yes, was published and funded by PlayStation. But Kojima Productions is, in fact, independent studio.
Yeah.
Similarly with all the Quantic Dream stuff that came to PC as well at a later date, although that was published by PlayStation, Quantic Dream is, again, an independent studio, and Neo was a similar thing as well. So this isn't an independent studio, this is a first party studio by PlayStation that will be releasing a game on a platform that isn't PlayStation, and I believe that is a first, and it's Horizon Zero Dawn, which is an absolutely fantastically good game, and PC players out there, do not sleep on it. If it does come, all of you go and buy it, because it is a truly tremendous game. It does come 3 years after its initial release in 2017. Is this a sign that things are changing at PlayStation? Are they also, like Xbox, becoming a bit more platform agnostic, do we think?
Maybe slightly more.
Because there is also rumours now as well that Dreams is coming to PC as well, which would be a superb move for that game, to be completely honest. And I think it was Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us. There's chat around that as well. None of that is confirmed. That is significantly more speculation on the latter two. But Dreams, I mean, that rumour's been swirling for ages.
It feels to me like they need a more flexible strategy than they've had in the past, at least, because, like you say, Dreams has got to be on PC. It has got to be.
I could not agree
If
more.
not at launch, then very soon after. The difference is for those other games, particularly thinking about like The Last of Us 2, that can't come to PC immediately, I don't think. I think there has to be a gap of this kind of a length. Maybe not quite 3 years.
3 years is a long time.
Maybe a year and a half, 2 years even.
Because in reality, as much as I'm saying Horizon Zero Dawn is an absolutely superb game, I know for a fact that when we see the open world of, I don't know, Cyberpunk, that's going to be blown away at the water because it's 3 years old at that point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the games industry moves very fast. So playing a 3-year-old game feels very much like playing an old game.
Totally. And particularly, Horizon Zero Dawn is one of those games of the generation. It was certainly one of the games of that year. As a game like Days Gone, say 3 years from now, going to be something that people want to play on PC. Maybe not. But I think in terms of their strategy of selling PlayStation 5s or even PS4s in the short term through the exclusives that they've got, you can't put them onto PC that soon, and that's been a big issue for Xbox on this generation.
Is exactly what I was about to bring up. So this is a thing that we always say as PlayStation fanboys, some of us more than others.
You just love to think
that. But this is something that we always say about Xbox, is why would I buy an Xbox? If I wanted to play those Xbox games, I can play them on PC, and I can still have all my nice shiny PlayStation exclusives over here by buying a PlayStation. But suddenly, if both are platform agnostic and they're just everywhere, and you can play PlayStation exclusives on PC and you can play Xbox exclusives on PC, then why are we getting a console at all suddenly?
Yeah, I mean, so it comes down to the delay and the other services and stuff that they can build in, but the consoles aren't significantly better than PC on those fronts. So,
well, they're actively not. Well, in terms of hardware.
Yeah. Sorry, I meant, I guess, more like community and trophies and all that kind of thing. But it's largely equal now across all systems, right?
Well, it is on Steam. Steam has a pretty big infrastructure.
Exactly.
There for that kind of stuff.
So everything's kind of offered in the same way. So PlayStation, in an attempt to protect themselves, I think have to maintain some sort of delay on the releases on PC if they're going to make this a bigger strategy going forward.
Maybe it's like what they're doing with Death Stranding. Maybe it's 6 months. But is 6 months enough? Does it have to be a year? Does it need to be 2 years? Is it 3 years? Is 3 years too long then? Is it worth it? They're playing with fire there, because PlayStation have control of the best games of this generation, as far as I'm concerned, or certainly a lot of them. And I think if they start making that non-exclusive to their platform, then like Xbox this generation, I think that people will start to think, well, why are we paying so much for your box when I could spend that money on a PC that would run the games better, and the games would probably cost me less money through Steam, so why am I buying your console at all, kind of thing. And then they're getting into a very hairy situation, because on the services front they're getting pummeled by Xbox, and on the cloud gaming front they simply do not have the infrastructure to compete with Microsoft or Google. Well, Google's like absolutely shot the bed, but the point is that theoretically they don't have the infrastructure to compete with Google.
Yeah.
I think that if they go down this route, which is technically very good for gamers because all the games are out there. No, but if PlayStation just becomes a publisher, if PlayStation just becomes like EA or Activision or whatever, then okay. But if they want to continue to be a hardware developer and they want to be in the console race, then I think this is a very dicey road.
Totally agree, yeah. I mean, I would be really sad to see that situation change, because some of the best games that we have had from PlayStation, they're partly good because they're supported so well by Sony, and there's no need to do the Activision thing and introduce rampant microtransactions stuff.
But why would that change if they weren't making it for their system? They could still very well support their games and support their IP and just make it available to everyone and just be a publisher.
But publishers make decisions to make more money through other means, for instance, like microtransactions and that kind of thing, that Sony so far basically have not had to do, because they're selling exclusive games to their exclusive console and they're generating console sales because of that. And I know they obviously lose money to an extent on console sales, but those two things have equaled out enough for them to be successful, right?
Yeah. Well, they make money through the platform by eating a bit of loss on
the actual. Yeah. So, but if you then start putting that everywhere, then they probably have to make up some of that cost, because they're going to lose cuts here and there. And everywhere. I thought you'd be more into this, because you're very much all about crossplay and everyone coming together.
No. Look, I think that this is a good thing on the whole. I don't think that this is a very good thing for PlayStation.
Yeah.
And because I'm emotionally tied to PlayStation in ways that I can't describe, it's slightly sad. But at the same time, I think that for gamers, like if we were just to draw a big circle around all the gamers in the world, like for that group of people, this is a good thing. And for all you PC players out there, like I said, don't let this pass you by. It's a tremendous game, absolutely fantastic game. And I'm seriously hoping that Horizon 2 is a launch title for the PS5, which has been rumoured for a while. Yeah, and I want to see it do really well on PC, but I just think that for PlayStation, as these consoles that me and you and lots of people have loved for years and years and years, I think that this could be quite a dangerous road, because I think in terms of services and in terms of cloud gaming, I'm not sure that they can compete with the others, you know?
So you introduce a 3-year delay. That's the answer.
That is the answer. All right, news item number 3. Rockstar North have published their accounts revealing a huge increase in video game tax relief, which is known as VGTR here in the UK. This tax relief all but confirms that GTA 6 is in development, basically. Or it certainly confirms that Rockstar North are ramping up their development because their operating costs have clearly went through the roof. The problem with all this is that the VGTR scheme was originally set up to help small developers with high production costs in making games. However, Rockstar has received $37.6 million in tax relief last year and a total of $80 million overall, which accounts for more than a third of the claims through this scheme. And it also means that Rockstar have paid no UK corporations tax in the last 4 years. All of this, despite the fact that GTA 5 has eclipsed $6 billion in sales and being one of the most profitable entertainment products in history. So subsequently, a tax watchdog here in the UK has published a big long article about it. What was the name of them?
Tax Watch.
They're just called Tax Watch, yeah. And you can kind of see why, but Rockstar have subsequently responded with this statement.
The UK's programme to support the growth of a broad range of creative industries through tax relief is a proven success. The programme has directly resulted in Rockstar Games significantly increasing its investment in the UK, creating well over 1,000 highly skilled and long-term jobs across London, Lincoln, Yorkshire and Scotland. This investment and the success of British video games supported by the programme not only significantly contributes to the economy and to UK tax receipts, but also helps solidify the UK's position at the forefront of video game development well into the future.
The UK Games Industry Trade Association, the UKIE, have also made this statement.
Video game tax relief is a forward-thinking policy that shows the UK understands the significance of games as a leading creative industry. We know that VGTR delivers a great return on investment for the taxpayer. For every £1 invested into the games industry via VGTR, it pays back £4 in gross value added into the economy. But even more importantly, VGTR directly supports 4,320 high productivity full-time jobs in game development roles, nearly a third of our entire development workforce across the country. This helps businesses based everywhere from Dundee to Brighton to play on the global stage, while allowing local communities to benefit from great jobs fit for a digital age. The UK enjoys a global reputation for creative excellence in game development. Now is the time to continue to support an industry that drives inward investment, exports globally, and provides a world-beating showcase of the skills the UK has to offer.
Now, I'm conflicted.
Yeah?
I'm conflicted here because I believe them there. Like, I believe that for every £1 they invest through this scheme, they get £4 back, and it's actually really good for the economy, and it's great that it's boosted on the video games industry. And I'm sure that the money that they give Rockstar, they do generate an extra £3 into the economy and whatever, and I'm sure that they are supporting 1,000 jobs. It would just be nice if Rockstar shouldered some of that by themselves, and maybe left a bit more money available to the small developers that the scheme was actually aimed at.
Yeah.
However, having said that, it's kind of difficult to argue with. It's more the system that's the problem. It's not really Rockstar. I mean, if someone's going to say, "Oh, we'll give you 80 million if you apply to this scheme," then what are Rockstar going to say? Oh no, well, we won't bother with that.
Well, yes, they could say that. I understand the point that they aren't going to do that. But they should do that.
They could say that, but I mean, in reality, they're not going to do that. And if you can get a tax break so that you can invest more in developing your games in the UK, particularly Rockstar North, which is based here in Scotland. Yeah, I am conflicted about this. I don't think that it's good, to be completely clear, but I understand that it's probably a good use of public funds despite that.
It's not a good use of public funds as it comes to Rockstar. I think
that's correct.
There's a lot going on there. I think you're right that like part of Rockstar's statement and part of the UKIE's statement are completely valid. It's the video game tax relief is important. It's what other countries are doing to bolster their industry. It is supporting, jobs and game creation in this country. It's supporting the industry. That's all fantastic. Rockstar is an extremely rich company, trades across the world. All of its profits leave the UK and go to America. We're not getting corporation tax from it. Okay, you're getting VAT from and PAYE tax from the jobs that they create, but those jobs would happen anyway because they still have to develop those games.
But they don't have to develop them here.
They don't. But they don't have to develop here right now because they could move to a tax haven and do all of this. So there's a reason that they're doing it here. People move here for jobs because of the quality of life and that kind of thing as well. So it's a much bigger, complex picture. Also, the thing about £1 return and £4, that return would be greater if you gave all of this money to Rockstar because they are the most profitable. So that's not. I don't think that's a good argument from the UKIE because if you gave all the money to smaller companies, your £1 would probably return £1.50 because those aren't going to make huge sums of money. So you can't justify having a scheme like this by saying giving all the money to Rockstar is going to get us a bigger return because the whole purpose of it is to support the lower elements of the industry. And if Rockstar were doing other things to balance that out, like paying for, the way that we talk about should private healthcare companies be paying money to the NHS because the NHS trains their staff and then takes them. Maybe Rockstar should be doing that kind of thing. If they, rather than taking public money and giving nothing back, they could be paying money into a fund that goes to provide for smaller developers so that new people come up through the system that they are then going to take down the line. There's a lot to it all, obviously. I am really angry at Rockstar for this. It's so hard to... I find it really personally difficult to say that anything about this is fine because of the corporation tax thing. Basically, you pay your taxes. That is like a hard red line for me. You pay your taxes. I have to pay. I'm having to tax them right now. You have to pay your taxes.
No, of course. But the point in this scheme is that they're giving them a break in their corporation tax.
There's a difference between a break and complete lifting.
That is what the scheme allows for. You know? My thing about it is maybe the scheme has to look at this. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So the scheme shouldn't be available to Rockstar, effectively, is what I'm saying. Like, it should be available to much smaller developers that aren't first-party studios or aren't affiliated with, like, Take-Two or, you know what I mean, and aren't themselves incredibly wealthy.
Totally.
And help bolster small businesses so that maybe they can become the next Rockstar. Do you know what I mean? And maybe they are creating 1,000 jobs, and maybe right now we have to put a bit of investment into them in taxpayers' money, but that's an investment worth taking for me anyway, and to support people who are trying to do something creative in this industry, which is incredibly difficult to do because the production costs of video games, as we were just discussing, is insanely high.
Totally.
It's so high before you actually make any of it back. If you make any of it, if you're lucky enough to even make any of it back, I completely understand it, and I know that this is a pretty sore subject for you in general, but I do completely understand it. I do understand also what Rockstar are saying and what the UKIE are saying, but yeah, it doesn't feel very good.
Yeah, I think you're totally right there. Like, the scheme is a good idea, badly executed. Yeah, we're used to that, I suppose.
Basically, is what I'm saying here is that I feel that the scheme is more at fault here than Rockstar. Like, Rockstar are just taking advantage of a scheme that's available to them.
Yeah.
Should they be doing that? No.
Yeah.
No, they shouldn't, but they will, because they are a business.
Yeah.
That scheme, I don't think, should be available to them, is basically where I'm coming from.
Yeah, just a cap on it or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But GTA 6 is in
know,
which is super exciting.
I know, that's great.
Can't be a bit of tax chat, can you?
That's what they tune in for, Mark.
All right, and news item number 4. Cyberpunk 2077 has been delayed. Boo. Boo. CD Projekt Red has confirmed that the game will be delayed 5 months from April the 16th to September the 17th. CD Projekt Red has made this statement on Twitter in the worst font and the most yellow background. Lewis, read away.
We have important news regarding Cyberpunk 2077's release date we'd like to share with you today. Cyberpunk 2077 won't make the April release window, and we're moving the launch date to September 17th, 2020. We're currently at a stage where the game is complete and playable, but there's still work to be done. Night City is massive, full of stories, content, and places to visit, but due to the sheer scale and complexity of it all, we need more time to finish playtesting, fixing, and polishing. We want Cyberpunk 2077 to be our crowning achievement for this generation, and postponing launch will give us the precious months we need to make the game perfect. Expect more regular updates on progress as we get closer to the new release date. We're really looking forward to seeing you in Night City. Thank you for your ongoing support.
Regarding a next gen release, CD Projekt Red also said that, quotes, Cyberpunk is right now heading for PS4, Xbox One and PC. Nothing has changed in regards to the plans. That was in an investors call Q&A that is actually available online.
The whole thing?
Yeah, cool. as like an audio file. We'll post that in the show notes at PlayersToo.com. However, that does seem quite bizarre, because in the same investors Q&A, they also said that 2021 appeared unlikely as a release date for Cyberpunk multiplayer, which means that it must be coming on the next gen consoles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it must have been coming on the next gen consoles anyway.
Yeah.
But when will it be coming to the next gen consoles, I suppose, is the question. Because it's not just a matter of copy and paste there, you know?
No, absolutely not. You would assume, though, that they have been working on the premise that they would be doing a port fairly quickly after the release of the consoles. I suppose the fact that they're clarifying that it is still coming to current gen is because right now we don't know if the new consoles might be out by this release date. I suspect
probably be early.
Yeah, maybe, but potentially they could be. They're much closer to that problem now, and so I feel like they're saying to their investors, don't worry, we're still going to be serving this game to the 100 plus million players on PS4 and however many are on Xbox and PC at the moment. So that's probably what that's all about. The multiplayer thing, I think, was always a bit separate anyway. That I think that was always the plan.
Yeah, it was supposed to be coming out separately, but the fact that it's going to be
significantly, yeah.
I mean, that's over a year. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they're saying it's not going to come out in 2021, mm-hmm. that means we're talking 2022 at the earliest, obviously. Mm-hmm. But that's going to be well over a year at that point. And I mean, GTA 5 pulled that off, right?
Was it a full year for them though? I can't remember at all.
I'm not sure if it was a full year, but it must have been in the ballpark, right? Yeah. And they pulled that off. But GTA 5 is a once in a generation, maybe once in a lifetime, maybe a once in an ever game. Do you know what I mean? There's not games that are going to ever pull that off very often. And I'm not saying Cyberpunk isn't going to be capable of it. And in fact, if anything is capable of it,
maybe
I think there's very few other contenders apart from Cyberpunk. But to keep an audience engaged in that game for that long without multiplayer, and then have it reinvigorated in the same way that GTA 5 was when it launched its multiplayer. Mm-hmm. But I suppose that happened over a generation, the same way that Cyberpunk will be happening over a generation. GTA 5 done it over the PS3, Xbox 360 to PS4, Xbox One generation, and now Cyberpunk's going to do that onto the PS5, Series X, whatever we're getting from Xbox generation. So, I mean, it is possible. Maybe they're trying for the GTA 5 model. Maybe they saw all them dollars and thought, we'd like some of that, please.
Yeah. Yeah, we're definitely going to see it across both generations. Who knows if CD Projekt Red can pull this off? But like you say, it feels like they are well placed to do so.
If anyone can, they can.
Yeah, and generally speaking, the delay, happy with that? I mean, obviously not happy, but...
Not happy, but if they need more time to make this game the way that they want it to be, and it sounds as if, I mean, they've used the word perfect the game in this Q&A. So if they want it to be that good, if they want it to be absolutely polished and absolutely pristine out the box, no dicking around with bugs and all that, then yeah, take your time, do what you've got to do, make sure it is right coming out of the box. Fucking nail this. We're all ready for it. We can wait 5 more months, or I certainly can. Alright, finishing off with a couple of shout outs. More delays, Lewis. Look how those two ran into one another there. Almost as if it was planned. Dying Light 2 has been delayed from, quotes, spring 2020 to an unspecified date. However, they did release a statement on Twitter that said that they would be sharing more information in the months to come. And shout out number 2 on the back of that, Iron Man VR has also been delayed from February the 28th to May the 15th. Iron Man VR being a PSVR exclusive. Short delay for that, ultimately it'll be fine. Ultimately, I think Dying Light 2 is a bit more interesting there because it never really had a solid release date anyway, and they're already delaying it from that not solid release date to a release date that is unspecified, which is slightly more concerning to me.
Also, we hadn't seen or heard very much from it for quite a while, I think. So
E3?
Yeah, but I mean, even
it was
then,
received well at E3.
Like,
it was received well.
Was
at
it not
E3?
the previous year's E3 that we got a really in-depth look at it though? And then since then, it's just got quieter and quieter.
I think that it was at both E3s. I think it was at E3 2018 and E3 2019. And as far as I'm aware, it was received well, and they were going very in depth into player choice systems where whole parts of the game could easily be missed by the player depending on the decisions that are made, which was very, very interesting. And basically, I only heard positive things about it after E3. But yeah, you're right. Since then, basically nothing. I mean, you could say that about a lot of games at E3, I suppose. The fact that it's now had a release window and that release window is now being pushed to an unknown date is... I mean, it doesn't feel good.
Particularly approaching generation change.
And approaching the generation change. All right, shout out number 3. There was a Smash Brothers Direct on the day that our previous episode went up. Nintendo just continuing to dick us over just perfectly.
There's obviously something they love about Thursdays.
There really, really is. This was obviously to unveil the new Smash character and the final for the first fighter pack. And it is Byleth from Fire Emblem 3 Houses. You can play it as both male and female version of Byleth. And this is the 8th Fire Emblem fighter in the game, which annoyed quite a lot of people in the West. However, I've seen a whole bunch of stuff on Twitter that was like, who the fuck wanted this? Nobody cares about Fire Emblem, blah, 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 blah. Do you know who does care about Fire Emblem? Do you know who really, really cares about Fire Emblem? Sakurai and people in Japan.
Yeah.
It is huge over there. I reckon that this would have been incredibly well received over there, although us in the West would have been a bit like, it's another Fire Emblem character. This was all but inevitable.
Yeah.
This is the biggest Fire Emblem that has ever been.
Yeah.
It sold so much better in the West than any of the previous ones had, even Awakening, which was the last biggest one, basically. For me, this was totally inevitable. This totally came as no surprise at all. Was it a bit of a damp squib to end on? Yeah, it should have been Banjo. But again, I think that for a Japanese or certainly kind of East Asian audience, this would have went down like an absolute storm.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It would be a much bigger problem if they hadn't announced that they were doing more anyway. I mean, this, like you say, this was definitely coming. There's absolutely no way.
Coming.
It deserves to be there. There's no doubt about that. So do it now, close off that fighter pack, announce the next one, then you can start hitting out with a more, selfishly interesting for us Western people kind of characters,
Definitely. But I do understand that it was a bit of frustration and I was a bit kind of like, But I mean, just the hate around it. It's just fucking too much. It's a video game.
You've got like 70 odd other characters to pick from.
I think it's nearly 90.
Yeah, probably, isn't it? Actually,
it's insane how many characters are on that. But also, there was a Cuphead Mii Fighter costume, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
It was really, really cool to see Cuphead in Smash as well. Even though it's not like a proper character, it's just great. It was like seeing Sans from Undertale in it as well. It's just superb. Again, it's just this beautiful gathering of video game memories.
Total celebration of gaming.
A total celebration of gaming, and it's amazing. And I think what Sakurai does over there is fucking incredible. So if he wants to put in one of his favourite characters from Fire Emblem, fucking let him. Alright, shout out number 4, rumours, Lewis. Rumours love a good rumour. Apparently, there will be a new 2D Metroid game released this year and a new Paper Mario game released this year for Nintendo Switch. Now, these rumours came about through a man by the name of Sabai, who I have never heard of before, but is apparently worth trusting because there was about 1,000 articles on this.
Yeah.
According to him, the 2D Metroid game will be, quotes, related to Metroid Fusion, which was a very, very, very well received GBA game back in the day. And the new Paper Mario will be going, quotes, back to how it was. Now, I'm not overly familiar with the Paper Mario series. From what I have gathered, that is a good thing. I'm excited for the Metroid game. I mean, I'm not massively into Mario in general, but
you're a fool.
I'm sure many people will say that. But yeah, this would be great.
I think, yeah, if both of these rumours are true, that's really cool. Again, for me, it's like this is still part of our big new Nintendo adventure. Neither of us had played any Nintendo games in any serious way until, well, you'd played a bunch of Game Boy games, I suppose, but until the Switch. Like, this is my proper introduction to a lot of the franchises that have been killing it on Nintendo for so long, and this is just another two that would be really exciting to see and dive into at some point. So yeah, good stuff.
Alright, shout out number 5. DBZ Kakarot came out, Lewis. Currently sitting at a 74 on Metacritic for PS4 and a 77 on Xbox One. Not brilliant scores, but the user scores for this game are like in the mid to high 8s. So basically what this game is for fans of Dragon Ball Z. If you're not a fan of Dragon Ball Z, this is going to be an incredibly average, basically uninteresting game. But if you are a fan of Dragon Ball Z, like I am, then this looks quite interesting. I think I'm going to try and play this at some point. Yeah. I'm not sure when, but at some point I would quite like to play it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, nice one.
Alright, shout out number 6, Temtem, Lewis. A game many of you might never have heard of, but it is a full rip-off of Pokemon and has been kind of in the zeitgeist recently, we'll say. I think there was some sort of early access beta, but now it's full early access on Steam and on the Humble Store. And basically all I've heard about it is good reports. So it's basically a Pokemon MMORPG, only you're capturing Temtems and not Pokemon. But it looks in every way like Pokemon. Even the trailer that they put out for the game had the most cringy anime music that you would expect to see from a Pokemon game.
Do you think you're going to check it out?
Yeah, man, I fucking am going to try it out. It looks awesome. You can get like proper co-op in it. All the battles are 2v2. It's much more strategic and tactical than Pokemon is. It's much more difficult than Pokemon is. Yeah, it sounds like a game that I've been waiting for a long time. It sounds like a more, quotes, adult version of Pokemon. But careful how you use that word in relation to Pokemon. If you've been on that,
don't Google that.
It can be rough. Alright, and shout out number 7, just something that I'd picked up on just before we started recording this, is that all the Half-Life games are currently free to play on Steam. So, yeah, get on that. Basically, I think that's an awesome offer. Not that they were going for very much on Steam beforehand. I think I picked all the Valve games up for something like, I don't know, £8 or something like that back in the day. I can't remember, but yeah, get on it. If you've never played Half-Life or want to get into Half-Life before Alex comes out, obviously this is all related to the promotion of Half-Life Alex. Yeah, get on that. Free
Good stuff, yeah. I'm going to check it out for sure, yeah.
Cool, man, cool. All right, Lewis, and with that, time for a beer. And we are back with Topic of the Week. Topic of the Week this week is video game delays and crunch, Lewis. Now, crunch, for those of you that don't know, is the period usually towards a game's release, the months leading up to a game's release, where the dev team can be working absolutely ludicrous hours to try and get the game finished in time, and this can lead to a terrible, horrible workplace environment, horrible for people's mental health and social lives, and is altogether a bad thing, which also doesn't produce very good work.
Yep.
So this is a sort of spin-off of the Cyberpunk delay. In the same investors Q&A that we had referenced previously, when asked if the dev team would have to crunch, CEO Adam Kaczynski said, to some degree, yes, to be honest. We try to limit crunch as much as possible, but it is the final stage. We try to be reasonable in this regard, but yes, unfortunately. Now, that's not good that you're admitting that. I mean, at least they've admitted it, I suppose.
Gotta give them that,
yeah, but it's not good nonetheless. Subsequently, the International Game Development Association, which fights for workers' rights in the video games industry, responded with this statement.
Work-life balance is critical for the mental health of developers, and studios should consider the well-being of their employees when determining a new release date. Gamers have become more aware of the pressures on game developers, and they are more understanding of delayed launches. A studio as massively successful as CDPR would hopefully have the means to support a longer development cycle to reduce crunch. While they have previously noted their crunch periods are not mandatory, the pressure to crunch is strong just from supporting longer hours, and even stronger when directly asking developers to work nights and weekends. Crunch is one of the main factors in the game industry that burns out developers and causes a high rate of departure from both roles and the industry. Caring for the mental and physical health of employees not only supports the creation of the best quality games, but ensures that the game industry grows even stronger by supporting the continued growth and well-being of our developers.
So as that statement alluded to, back in May 2019, CDPR discussed crunch with Kotaku's Jason Schreier. Kaczynski at that time stated, in regards to his dev team, that they wanted to be treated more humane and treated with respect. And one of the ways that they were going to try and tackle crunch was to have a non-obligatory crunch policy, which meant that even if you were asked to work late, it was made clear to you that it was not mandatory.
Yeah, and there's another quote from back at E3 2019 when the Cyberpunk designer Pavel Sasko was speaking to Eurogamer's Tom Phillips, in which they said, "We're pretty comfortable we can deliver on this date and not kill ourselves," that being the original release date. "It's a complex topic. We just love this project and we want to work on it. And if someone was to tell me to stop or that I didn't need to do something, I'd say, I want to make this better. Am I supposed to agree to something that's worse? I won't. I fucking won't do it. I'll never do it. And the guys here, they're all the same. We won't agree to release something that's crap, ever. No one's going to say it's crap, but there's a balance to that and working 100 hours a week. 100-hour weeks are extreme. It's more about being clever and picking the right battles. There are things you can invest time in which are invisible to players, whereas there are small things you can do that players will absolutely appreciate. Crunch is a huge mistake which this industry needs to be better at, but it's a complex topic." I think that's just a really interesting take from them as recently as E3 last year, so 6 months ago.
Yeah, also interesting that they were talking about how, I mean, the dev teams always do and the rest, of course, but they seemed very confident that they were going to hit this target, and now they've delayed it by 5 months.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, what's gone wrong in the past 7 months?
I don't think it's not what's gone wrong, it's just maybe like how much can you physically get through in that time, and has that been assessed correctly? Obviously the answer to that is no, but it seems to be that the game is in a playable state. It's just they want this game to be all singing, all dancing, out the box. One of the things I wanted to bring up around this and around crunch, this non-obligatory crunch policy. Now, I think it's all well and good for developers to have policies like this in place, and they should have policies like this in place. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that they do have policies like that in place. However, what is really the problem is not your non-obligatory crunch policy, it is the culture of crunch in your office. Do you know what I mean? It's totally fine to have a policy, but if no one follows that policy and no one is interested in enforcing that policy, then it's moot. Do you know what I mean?
It's not a policy at all, really.
It doesn't matter. And as well, like, if you can see your manager or your some senior member of staff is working a 60-hour week and you're only working your hours kind of thing, then you're going to feel like a dick for not staying in late and working as hard as he is. Or if there's other people relying on your work, and for you to just say, "Oh well, I'm doing my hours, this is non-mandatory overtime," or whatever. But others who are willing to stay are relying on you to stay in order for them to do their work. This could very, very quickly become very, very messy. One thing I will say about CD Projekt Red is that they are paid for all their overtime.
Yeah.
It's Polish employment law that if they are doing overtime or if they're asked to do overtime, then they have to be paid for that, which is not the case in a lot of places in the world, not least of which North America. So CD Projekt Red are actually better at this than most. At least these people are getting paid for their time, which is half the problem. What do you think about that, just around the kind of office culture of the crunch problem in the video games industry? And do you think that like a non-obligatory crunch policy is actually helping?
I don't see that it can, in a way. As you were outlining there, there's just no way that your bog standard employee in the middle of the chain can sit there, and at 5 o'clock on the nose, sign off their computer, head home for the day, knowing that everyone is still sat there in the office and that they're working towards this thing that, as the quote that I read there sort of suggests, like, people really believe in this, and it's important to remember that in this discussion. A bit like the tax discussion that we had earlier, like, this is something that is complex, can really kind of stir passions. I work in an industry where this kind of thing happens. I'm sure, like, I guess everyone's jobs is a bit like this, right?
Yeah.
Like, it happens. There are moments where I know that I'm going to have to be in work late, but you kind of come to terms with that and you shift things around it. The problem in gaming generally, maybe less so in CD Projekt Red, who are a bit more upfront about it and maybe a bit more honest, seems to be that in a lot of companies it's never really spoken about, it's horrible and not paid, and goes on for quite a long time. And we've seen that with games. Rockstar have had a big problem with this. Epic with Fortnite, we're getting into trouble before.
Epic with Fortnite as well. Santa Monica with God of War. Naughty Dog with Last of Us. All of these studios have been well known, well documented to have bad crunch.
So there's obviously an element of this which is just sort of an unfortunate natural product of making games and trying to hit deadlines. When you have deadlines, crunch will happen in any field. It's kind of got to. It comes down to, one, are you being paid? If it is genuinely non-mandatory, then you can decide whether or not you want that money. As we say, the culture thing probably prevents that, right? But if it's being paid, that's one thing. And if it's not happening constantly and for months and months on end, the thing that worries me about CD Projekt Red and the fact that they've admitted this is that they've probably been in crunch for a good few months now already because the game was due soon.
Well, this is very interesting because I'm just going to bring up an article that was written by Jason Schreier, who's come up a lot in this podcast.
He's good on these things.
Yeah, Jason Schreier is a huge component of like unionization in the video games industry and is very anti-crunch. But he came out with an article on Friday just past there, which has the quote in it, with very few exceptions, video game delays lead to more crunch, not less.
Yeah.
So this idea that we have in our minds that, oh no, we're not going to crunch, we will delay our game. So the example that he used was actually The Last of Us Part 2, which was supposed to come out in February or whatever?
Yeah, February. Yeah.
And it's now coming out in May. That's not, we're taking that extra time not to crunch. What that is 3 more months of crunch.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that is probably what is happening at CD Projekt Red as well. What those devs have probably thought about that delay is, well, that's just 5 more months of crunch to me, because they've got feet in the ground there. You know what I mean? They knew they weren't hitting that fucking deadline for probably for months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They knew that this was getting pushed for a long, long time.
Although apparently they were only told the actual new date like minutes before everyone else was. So yeah,
well, they probably.
That must have been a horrible environment to be in.
I actually semi-understand that because CD Projekt Red don't want that to leak.
Yeah,
beforehand.
that's true.
But nonetheless, that delay has led to them crunching for longer now. That hasn't relieved their workload any.
Not one bit, yeah, because you've already been in that process. As you said there, like if you're working on that game, you know that you're not hitting that. No one's telling you how long left you've got, so you're probably working even harder in the last few weeks because you're like, Christ, we don't know how long this is going to be delayed for. We've just got to get more work done. Yeah. Suddenly you've got 5 months more, and that, like you say, is just going to be filled with probably slightly less of a crunch than it might have been if they did have to hit the April date, but still crunch, still overtime, still more time working on this game. And that's only until they find more bugs and more things that they want to make perfect, and so it is just going to ramp up. And it's like we say, it's not just a problem with CD Projekt Red. I think we're both quite keen to make that clear.
Yeah. And in actual fact, I think despite that it's the fact that it's not good, and I'm not saying that it's okay that CD Projekt Red are crunching, it's absolutely not, but I like the fact that at least they've been upfront about it, and I know for a fact that at the very least, I know that those devs are getting paid what they should be getting paid for the overtime. I just wanted to kind of touch on what the International Game Developers Association was saying, and it was about the kind of work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are workaholics out there, and there are very, very passionate people that care a lot about how this game's going to turn out and would probably consider it like a crowning jewel in their career. You know what I mean? This will be a huge moment for these people when this game eventually comes out, and are therefore quite rightly passionate about how it's going to turn out, and they want it to turn out as well as it can.
Absolutely.
And that's admirable. I wouldn't say a negative thing about any of that, but the problem with that is when it starts to affect your work-life balance and affects things outside your work. It affects your mental health, it affects your sleeping patterns. If it's like all-consuming in your life, then that's no way to live. Do you know what I mean? You can't go on like that sustainably.
Yeah.
Although we're talking about it being like non-mandatory, at the same time that also does leave the door open for people to be working nonsense hours and be working 15-hour days, sleep in the office, wake up there and then just do the whole thing all over again, you know?
Yeah.
And that's not good for anybody. And CD Projekt Red have to take responsibility for that and have to take care of their employees and have to say to that guy or that girl, just be like, no, enough. You are done here. Go home. You will not be back in here for at least 12 hours. Go away.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what's good for the product as well. Like,
it is good for the product as well, and it's good for the fucking industry. And this is what nobody seems to realise, is that the games industry has an absolutely piss poor retention rate of anyone that's any good. Let's see, like really, really excellent programmers, people that you'd never hear about, not your Cory Barlogs or Hideo Kojimas or people like that, people that are like just excellent at doing
pressing the buttons,
the nitty gritty shit. You know what I mean? Why would you work in that horrible environment when you can go to a Silicon Valley tech startup? You could probably make twice the amount of fucking money. You probably work 4 days a week if you want. You probably use one of them on like a personal project, and then if you work for someone like Google, you can take as many days off as you like, whenever you like. It's like, well, why in God's name am I stuck in the backwoods of God knows where, programming my fucking arse off for a game I might not even care about, when I could be out in California sunning it up and making twice as much money? Do you know what I mean? I mean, I'm being obviously slightly facetious about all of that, but why would anyone choose to do that? And as it does boil down to these really passionate people that are really passionate about video games, and I just think that everyone has to realise that crunch is just not good. It's not good for anyone. It's not good for your company. It's not good for the industry. It's not good for those individuals. It's not good for anyone at all. And the more people that are making games, well, like the people who are happy to go into work and people who are not stressed about going into work make better products, are more passionate about making better products. If people are happy to go to their work, they might not want to leave to get a quotes better job.
Yeah, or better work-life balance.
They might stay because they enjoy it so much and it's close to their families and they don't have to move away.
Yeah.
And the more time that these people have to do their jobs right in an enjoyable way, in a way that they are both passionate about what they're doing but are happy in what they're doing as well. We will all see the benefits.
Absolutely,
of that. We will all see the benefits.
It's about feeling supported at what you're doing and not feeling exploited. You're not going. You should be going to work and feeling like the people around you, and particularly your superiors, are looking after you. They're developing you as staff. They're developing you as developers or creative thinkers or whatever. I mean, how do you go in and think creatively about a game when you've not slept and you've not seen your partner for days and all that stuff? And you should feel like you're being taken care of and not that the company is cracking the whip and demanding things of you. It also has a massive, everything that you just said there being totally accurate, it has a massive impact on the potential diversity of your company, which leads to having all the sorts of issues that we've seen at Riot and all sorts of stuff over the last few years around, the exclusion of women or of ethnic minorities or disabled people. I mean, how can you possibly work these kind of crazy hours if you've got a disability or if you've got a newborn child and you've just come back to work as a young mother or whatever?
Cannot even imagine.
Those things aren't possible, and so that really limits it down to quotes, imagine
trying to take maternity leave on the run up to Cyberpunk.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it
just
wild.
Isn't possible, and so it effectively starts to create a situation where you have to be a kind of physically fit young man potentially. I mean, that's massive simplification, obviously, but to really be able to commit the 100-hour a week and prove it to your bosses that you're a team player and survive in the industry, and that's forgetting about the businesses or the cultures within studios. It's not good for you as a gamer because you're going to get less interesting experiences at the other end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you, in exchange for better conditions for CD Projekt Red or for any company, would you have seen a Cyberpunk delay of a year, say? Would you find that acceptable?
I don't. See, to be honest with you, before everything was getting delayed, I was praying that something was going to get delayed from that early release window for completely selfish reasons.
Yeah.
I don't mind games getting delayed. It becomes a problem when a game gets delayed maybe like 3 or 4 times. Then you're thinking, Christ,
it's just not going to happen.
But it's not even that. It's like, God, is this game in trouble? Is this game actually needing a full restart almost? You know what I mean? That's when I start getting worried about it. But if it's just, oh no, we need more time, cool, take it, go. I have no problem with that whatsoever. If this was going to come out next April, like whatever, I don't care. That's totally fine. If the game's going to be brilliant, everyone's going to be happy and proud of what they've created, then great. But there is also the bit of this that we're not really discussing, which is the business side of this, which is where they have to release games in a certain amount of time. I mean, as we've also discussed earlier on the podcast, the production cost of making games is absolutely gigantic, and you have to start making some money back at some point.
Unless you just take government handouts.
Unless you just take government handouts, of course. And on that note, before we get into more tax chat, I think we'll call it a day there. All right, I just wanted to mention a couple of articles. I know that we kind of punt articles in general, but there are 3 articles all by Jason Schreier that we'll link to in the show notes at PlayersToo.com, and there's one by Vice as well, which I thought was quite good, just regarding crunch and how it's really, really, really not good for anyone involved. Some of these are specific to CD Projekt Red, and some of them aren't, and are just a kind of wider problem. But yeah, they're definitely worth reading. And if you for some reason haven't heard about crunch and why this is a big problem in the industry, go and look into it. It is not a good thing. But I would like to remind everyone that you can find PlayersToo on all the social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com. That's PlayerSTOO.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts, that really, really helps us out. And again, thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. Again, I cannot stress how much it helps us. It does a huge amount for the exposure of the show, and thank you so much again to anyone that's already done that for us. You're an absolute legend to us. I'd like to remind everyone that our play-along game for January is Ape Out, which I've still not played, but I will be doing it this week. I'm convinced that I'm just going to, I just need to do it and get out of the way. No, not get out of the way, that sounds awful. But because I keep on thinking about it and I'm like, I want to just play Last of Us, and I'm just like, no, let's just play this and get it done. I just want to focus on it.
Yeah.
Because I'm keen to play it, man. Every time I see that image on our Instagram of the Ape Out card, I'm just like, oh man,
yeah,
I want it.
I think it's a short enough experience that you can probably just sink right into it and
smash it in one go.
Yeah, and for you particularly, that might be a good palate cleanser after The Last of Us.
And Death Stranding, man, it's been heavy stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week.
Thanks.